passing of his wife 3 years before. He knew it was an old memory, relived in the darkness. He knew he could wake if he really tried, drag himself out of it, but he did not. Some men carried sin like a second skin, coating them and impossible to shed. Flavius Focalis would do penance all his days for his sins. They all would. He did not deserve to wake free from this nightmare. They had fought for so many hours. Even when it was clear the battle was lost. Even now he swung the sword with an arm robbed of all strength, a blow wrought by will alone, the will to survive and the will to wound those responsible for this day. Perhaps the one most responsible was already paying the price, though. As they had been forced back across the field of battle, he had seen the Emperor and his guards, the standards still high, manage to break free of the press, but unable to make it to anywhere safe, still cut off by more Gothic warriors, they had taken shelter in an abandoned building. Valens had lived that long, and only that long. The colours went in, marking the last stand of the Emperor. But it had been moments only before the Goths had fired the building, and the Emperor had been roasted in his own makeshift tomb. Focalis felt his lip curl. If there was any justice, Valens had lived through the arrow wound long enough to burn. This was his fault, after all. His and the general Lupicinus, and Ophilius, and Focalis, and the others. It was all their faults. Another blow carried through purely by will, and a Goth of the Thervingi fell away, screaming and clawing at his ruined face. Few of the bastards wore helmets, and Focalis had thanked the Lord for that more than once as he took clear targets in the press. Now, they were almost back to Hadrianopolis, just one small band of survivors. It was like that all across the field. The army of Rome was gone, just small clutches of desperate refugees fighting to find a way out. Still, they all lived. That alone was a miracle. All 8 of their tent party, of the Legio Prima Maximiana, still stood, though some cradled wounds, and others had limbs hanging limp or dragging. But they were sinners of the worst order and cursed men, and their survival was no boon. God was preserving them for a fate of his own worst design, Focalis was sure. The walls of the city were in sight now, but that was little comfort. They could seek safety there, but when the Thervingi and the Greothungi and their Alani allies managed to clear the field of Roman resistance, they would surround the city of Hadrianopolis and probably burn it to the ground, with every living soul trapped inside. No, into the city was not the way to go. If the tent party of Aurelius Ophilius was to survive to face their God-given punishment, they would have to lose themselves in the wilds. He turned, for another Goth had run at him, and he lifted his sword and shield in exhausted arms, ready to fight on against the impossible odds. This time, Flavius Focalis awoke, the hair standing proud on his neck, his flesh prickling with anticipation. The threat had changed, had become real. The desperate fight of the old dream, even in his subconscious, had morphed into that preternatural warning that something was not right. The room was dark, apart from a sliver of moonlight that lanced its way between the window shutters and cut across the blackness to leave a line of white across to the far wall. The air was chilly, though the cold sweat, dampening Focalis's brow, had nothing to do with weather or temperature. There was silence. The house was quiet. Not even the slaves and servants were about at this time. Even the dogs slumbered in blissful ignorance of anything amiss. Silence. Darkness. Focalis lay still.